we have here a lot of countries are facing. We have massive amounts of misinformation. Even doctors think that it's the nicotine that causes cancer, heart disease, COPD. They don't know that it's the smoke, not the nicotine.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Vaping Unplugged Podcast. Everything you need to know about vaping and tobacco harm reduction.
Hi, everyone. You are listening to the podcast Vaping Unplugged, where we talk all about harm reduction and vaping globally. Today, we have a very special guest, an activist who is very well known in vaping community. It's Skip Murray. Skip, thank you very much for being with us today. We will be talking about vaping in the US and what is Skip doing at the moment and all the amazing advocacy stories she has for us. So Skip, thank you very much for being with us. And first of all, how are you today?
Thank you for inviting me to be here. I am doing well today. How are you?
I'm good. Before we just talk about the situation in the US and just generally about your opinions about harm reduction globally, I wanted to ask you about your personal story. What's your journey of being a vapor and from vapor to the vape advocate?
I started smoking when I was 10 years old. And in 2014, my 29-year-old son had a heart attack and almost died. And the doctor told him if he didn't quit smoking, he was not going to see his little girl grow up. So he tried vaping and quit smoking. Excuse me. And he opened a vape shop. And I used to hang out at the shop and help him. And I'd sneak out the back door and have a cigarette. And he finally banned his mom from smoking at his vape shop. So I tried vaping just to do it when I couldn't smoke. And I accidentally quit smoking. And I haven't smoked since 2015.
That's a good accident that happened, I guess.
Excuse me.
Nice accident. What's your journey from being a vapor to the vape advocacy? Because I see now you're very active. You're always very loud about vapors' rights and choices for adults to switch to vaping if they want to quit smoking. So, how did you gradually become an activist?
It started with local and state regulations where I live. My son is learning disabled, so it's hard for him to like write his own testimony and give it. So I started helping him with that. And after spending so much time at the vape shop and just the wonderful feeling you get helping people quit smoking and seeing their health improve, and it would just be a shame to see it go away. So uh, my son got me going on social media and on like Facebook and things like that. And I just met other advocates, and the need to fight for vaping just never goes away. The situation, regulation wise, is just getting worse and worse. And I just can't see it go away.
You have a really beautiful story, and thank you very much for sharing it with us today. That's what we very often tell vapers, to share their personal stories, because advocates, activists, they come from this sort of backgrounds, and it's very important for the world to hear how vaping helped them. So thank you very much for sharing this with us today. And I want to talk a little about the regulation in the US. And you have already mentioned that the situation is getting worse and worse. So maybe we could elaborate on what do you mean by that. But before that, maybe we could talk a little bit about COP10 and WHO as well, because I remember some of us advocates were in Panama, but you have been very helpful sharing everything that was going on in Panama and how THR advocates were trying to defend the choice of vapers and generally vaping. Um, and you were helping a lot. So I just want you to, I want to ask you how COP10 looks like for you. What's your stance around it? And generally, what do you think about WHO and its approach towards vaping?
I am very disappointed in the WHO. They endorse harm reduction for other substances and not for people who use nicotine. And the tobacco harm reduction products instead of on the smoking. And millions of people die every year from smoking. And they have so much power and so much influence, and we could be saving so many more lives faster if they would get behind tobacco harm reduction like they are for other forms of harm reduction. This anti industry, excuse me, um, messaging, like when the COVID pandemic hit and uh, one vaccine wasn't allowed because it was made from tobacco plants, hurt people who needed the vaccine. That vaccine didn't need to be refrigerated like other vaccines, which would have been very helpful in countries that don't have the means to hold a lot of vaccines under refrigeration. Uh, the, the enemy should be the death and disease from smoking, and I'm just very frustrated that that is not the direction they're going. They're hurting people.
That's right. And it's very sad to see that those of us who might have had a different opinion about what's going on and about scientific evidence that we wanted to showcase were not allowed to the conference of the parties, and were not allowed to participate generally. So they're only choosing certain parties to participate.
I
Um,
agree. Our voice should be the most important voice, and we're ignored.
That's truth. Yeah, it was really hard to get it out, but I'm glad that a lot of people still made it from their home countries or were there. It was really important to see this unity and also an effort that the consumer voices are heard. Let's shift to vaping in the USA because I know that the rules and legislation differs when it comes to in accordance with the states. I don't know exactly where you are based and what's the situation there. And we also know that FDA approves certain products are not allowed on the market. So what's the situation? And since you've mentioned that it's getting worse and worse in terms of legislation and regulations, what are the challenges that vapers are experiencing?
Uh, Consumers are starting to have difficulty getting product, especially if they like to use the open systems. Right now, a project I'm working on is tracking all the vape shops and e liquid manufacturers that have gone out of business. And a lot of that is because of our regulations. It's just the FDA isn't authorizing any of those kinds of products or any of the flavors that are important to consumers. And that has uh, opened the door to the disposable market, which is hurting the traditional vape shop. We've got states that are banning flavors. My state is in the process of trying for, I don't know, the third or fourth year in a row. A lot of states are trying to tax vapor the same as combustible tobacco. Some states have decided they should do the FDA's job for them as far as enforcement of what products have received marketing orders or not, and are passing registry bills. Some of them are charging huge fees per product for manufacturers or distributors to register in those states. The bill just took effect in Louisiana, and already several vape shops in Louisiana have closed. You can't run a shop solely on 23 things. It's just not possible. And not when you can get those 23 things at every gas station in town. It is literally becoming easier to smoke in the United States than it is to improve your health and switch to vaping.
Now, as you are talking about how hard it is for vapers and consumers to get these products, um, there is enough scientific evidence on one side that proves that vaping is significantly less harmful than smoking, but it's still being attacked on the other side by policymakers and politicians and different institutions, and almost like punished, right, for existing generally. So why do you think that is happening? Why is there such a disbalance in what science says and in how the laws are generally organized at the moment in the USA?
I'm guessing the problem we have here, a lot of countries are facing. We have massive amounts of misinformation. Even doctors think that it's the nicotine that causes cancer, heart disease, COPD. They don't know that it's the smoke, not the nicotine. We have a moral panic over youth use that's way bigger than any concern we ever had. Like when I was a teenager and a lot of us smoked, nobody made a big deal out of it. So when you focus only on the children, you're not paying attention to the health of their parents and their grandparents and other important elders in their lives. And I think until we value all lives equally and somehow get through this just massive wave of misinformation, we're still fighting things like popcorn lung, which was debunked in like 2015. The whole EVALI crisis, that's still being blamed on nicotine vaping. People are still being told that you're higher risk to get COVID if you vape. None of these things are true. And yet the media shares it, and health organizations who we should be able to trust are also sharing that misinformation. The American Lung Association, Harvard Health, several of them all have popcorn lung on their websites. It's it's just maddening because nobody's seeing, they're like forgotten about the people that smoke. And it's this whole, I call it like reefer madness part two. They're just going to addict all the kids to nicotine, and they're making it sound like it's some horrible thing that all these adults are trying to do to kids. And they're saying that every flavor is marketing to kids. And yet, I can go buy all kinds of flavored adult products, including FDA approved products to help me quit smoking. I can buy flavored alcohol. I can buy flavored products for the private things people do in their bedrooms. None of those things are marketing to children. Why is it different for a vapor product?
Yeah, for sure, that doesn't make any sense. And since we started talking about flavors, and since you mentioned that your family runs a vape shop, probably you see a lot of adults who are into flavors, and you see how the flavors help them actually quit smoking. So could you share a little bit of that experience just to showcase that we had this campaign with a message that adults like flavors too? A lot of politicians just forget about that, as you've said.
I'll share a cute story with you. Years ago, this woman in her 80s came into the vape shop and she wanted a cotton candy flavor and was very upset with us that we didn't carry cotton candy. And she said she grew up poor and could never have treats like that. And now she's old and she's going to have cotton candy anytime she wants it, in any way she wants it. And next time she comes in our shop, we better have cotton candy or she's never coming back. And at the time, my son manufactured liquids. So I developed all his flavors for him. And I spent considerable amount of time in the back trying to figure out how to make cotton candy and had all our customers try it until we came up with one. And she really liked it. And in 2018, I took over the shop, and my last day in business was December 31st of 2021. And she was my very last customer on my very last day I was open. And she hugged me and she cried. And she was so afraid. Here she is now in her upper 80s. She was afraid she'd go back to smoking because nobody in town has a flavor she likes. Just why isn't she important? And why is it a big deal if an 80-some-year-old woman happens to like something that tastes like cotton candy? I can go buy cotton candy vodka. It's just sad. Uh, they keep pushing this big thing about nicotine addiction. If I was addicted to gin, like gin and Coke or some alcoholic beverage, and I was trying to break free of that, you wouldn't force my only choice of flavors in a beverage to taste like gin. So, if we're trying to help people break free from an addiction to smoking, why are we trying to force them into a product that's supposed to mimic the taste of a cigarette? None of the nicotine gums or lozenges or inhalers that are FDA approved to help people quit smoking come in a tobacco flavor. Why is that? And why, just because we're a consumer product instead of a medical product, do we have to meet a different standard as far as flavoring goes than an FDA authorized product?
You're right, yeah. And thank you for sharing this wonderful story. It's indeed very beautiful. And it's a testimony to the fact that to to the fact that flavors actually help adults to quit smoking, and they're very helpful. And all of that is also backed by the research, right? So the
Yes.
research shows that people who use flavors are 230% more likely to quit actually than those who use a tobacco flavor. So the question you are asking, why should we make people stick to tobacco flavor, is absolutely legit in my opinion. You are an activist and you're very loud and very effective, putting a lot of effort and energy to vape advocacy. And since slowly we're moving to the last part of our interview, I just want to ask you what would be your message to the vape advocates in the USA and globally? What should they be doing to defend vaping better, in your opinion?
Be loud and proud. Share your story every chance you get. Please be kind to people that don't agree with you. Uh, we're so frustrated that we often come across like a swarm of angry hornets. And we have every right to be angry. They're taking away from us what we feel is saving our lives, but nobody's going to listen to us if we're mean and nasty. So when you meet somebody that doesn't agree with you, ask questions, find out where they're coming from. I just had an experience with a representative from Florida who, one, believed that vaping causes popcorn lung, and two, supported anti vaping laws. But by talking to her, one, we found common ground. We both had mothers we've watched struggle to breathe. for different reasons, but with the same end result. We both care about people, we both care about kids. Find something you have in common with that person and go from there. Um, and please, when there's an opportunity to submit testimony, uh, do so and include your story. Write an op ed and submit it to the local newspaper. Just try anything you can, I guess.
Thank you so much, Skip. You are doing a great work and you're so inspirational, and you brought this very positive energy into the podcast. So I'm actually looking forward when this is going to be published. Thank you very much again for your time. We will be always happy to host you in the future.
Thank you for having me.
So, dear activists and vapers, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Skip. She's an amazing person, an amazing advocate, and it's been a pleasure to listen to her stories. As Skip said, please make sure to share your own stories, your own testimonials, and talk to people about vaping. I think what she said was very inspirational and an example for us all. We'll be back with another episode as usual in a week, so stay tuned for the next episode. And as always, thank you very much for listening and tuning in. Vape on!